Something that may get worked out in the next 2 months because October 31 is the trade deadline. So Jonathan Taylor either will be traded or won't be traded by the time that window closes on Halloween. Yesterday, Colts general manager Chris Ballard met with reporters to discuss the situation. Now, quick summary. Taylor wanted out. They gave Taylor an opportunity to try to find a suitable trade. The deadline was Tuesday. The deadline came and went, and they put Jonathan Taylor on the reserve physically unable to perform list, knocking him out for at least 4 regular season games. That's where it stands. We don't know what's going to happen moving forward. Here is Chris Ballard from yesterday describing where the current relationship is with Jonathan Taylor.
I care deeply for Jonathan Taylor. I have great respect for Jonathan Taylor. Our relationship, I would tell you, is, look, even when it gets hard, I won't quit on the relationship. I won't do it. I think too much of the young man. I think too much of what he's given our organization and how hard he's played for us. And what sucks, I mean, the situation, I'm not going to sit here and give you some rosy picture like, oh, this is just, everything's okay. No, it sucks. It sucks for the Colts. It sucks for Jonathan Taylor. And it sucks for our fans. This is the first time I've really dealt with this kind of, that's what's so, I'm disappointed because, we've never dealt with this before. That's why it sucks. Like, we've done a good job, making sure communicating, making sure the player knew where they stood, what we were going to do going forward. So, there's always a first. This happens from time to time. It's just something we work through. I told Jonathan this. I said, I don't want to say something that is not true. Right. Like, I don't want to lead him down. I don't want to lead him down a path and say, okay, give it. And then he looks at me and says, well, you're a liar. No. You're not going to do that. You don't want to make false promises that you can't keep, especially with players, because the second you do it, you're done. Like, I know it looks not the best right now, but I know I've never lied to him. I know that never lied to him. The running market is what it is, but look, great players are what they are too. So I think that all works. I think there's a.
So in that case, I'm assuming JT's a great player. Why not pay him?
We won 4 games last year.
Now, that last part to me was the lightning bolt moment where it made it abundantly clear that despite all the respect that Chris Ballard has earned over the course of his career, and he is very respected and he's regarded as honorable, the problem is his hands are tied by the guy who writes the checks, or, as the case may be, who doesn't write the checks. This is Jim Irsay. Jim Irsay is running this show. When the response is, when you say you pay great players, and the question that you get, why aren't you paying this guy then? And your response is, we won 4 games last year. Well, what is that? Of course they won 4 games last year. You know why they won 4 games last year? They bench Matt Ryan for the rest of the season, unless they don't. They fire Frank Reich. They hire a guy who was over his skis, so far over his skis, he didn't know he was wearing skis to be the interim coach. It wasn't Jonathan Taylor's fault they won 4 games. So why would that be the excuse for not paying Jonathan Taylor? We won 4 games last year. So what? Plenty of great players on bad teams get paid. They're the only reason people come to the games. We're a bad team. Let's
go watch.
Appreciate our great players.
Yeah.
Yes. So to me, that was Chris Ballard not lying, but just avoiding the candid response, which is, come on, man. This is what the owner wants to do. And he's done it before. He's the common link back to what they did with Marshall Faulk. They drafted him in the first round in 1994. He's a great player. Did they ever sign him to a second contract? Do they? No. They traded him. Then they replaced him with Edgerrin James. They ever sign him to a second contract? Do they? No. They let him walk away, and they drafted Joseph Adai. So that's what Irsay wants to do, I believe. I think all the evidence is there. Every way this is played out. Chris Ballard wanted to try to finesse this, and I think if Chris Ballard was given the keys to the vault or the combination to the safe,
he'd add a little.
He would say, "Let's pay this guy. Let's pay this guy."
I would think so. Right.
But Irsay wants, I believe, again, he's never said this, but his actions and his words point to this conclusion, Chris.
I agree with you there.
4 years with Jonathan Taylor, franchise tag him once, maybe twice, and then bye-bye, we'll go draft somebody else.
I agree with a lot of what you said. First off, I think your thoughts are there's a lot of people, I think, in league circles that believe that too. The thing I think of here, Chris Ballard's a pretty smart guy. Like you said, he's respected. He knows the game. He was taught by some smart people when he was coming up the ranks in the NFL, right? He understands where his team is at and how valuable a guy like Jonathan Taylor would be. So to the point you made, I would think that he wanted to pay him, give him a sweetener, whatever it might be. And to the other point of Irsay, yeah, I don't know. But like I said, I think people around the league think that this is Irsay's got some say in this matter. No doubt about that. I think the history you brought up is real. And then I think when we just dive back into early training camp, it's weird for an owner to even get involved in some of the comments he made, other than if it's like the quarterback. That's the only time we even hear the owner talk about money, contracts, things like that. When it's the quarterback, Irsay got involved in this, and then threw some gasoline on the fire with some tweets that he put out there too, which was unusual, which would also make you believe that he was not in the corner or the camp of, hey, let's pay the running back and try to figure out a middle ground here. He seemed like he was pretty much set on this ain't happening. And right, like he said in his tweet, it ain't happening. If you're not happy, the NFL will go on and blah, blah, blah. I know I'm paraphrasing, but that was the basic, gist of it.
Well, and that's right. And that points to this idea that they were never going to offer him a long-term deal. One of the items that emerged during those few weird days before it calmed down a little bit was the notion that they had never even made him an offer, never even talked to him about a long-term contract. They weren't going to do that. They were going to let him get through 4 years. They're going to tag him, and they're going to tag him again, and then they're going to let him go, if they even tag him a second time. Now, I think what's going to happen, Chris, is one of two things. They're either going to trade him before October 31, or they're going to tag him and trade him in early 2024. I think that's one of the two alternatives. I don't see this resolving itself in a way that he continues to play year to year for the Colts, because
it seems like it's done.
He's not. Exactly. And the only way this changes is if Jim Irsay realizes the error of his ways here and decides we're going to mend this. And the best way to mend it, look at what's going on with Josh Jacobs and the Raiders now. Josh Jacobs has no hard feelings. No, because he won. He got what he wanted, or at least got something close to what he wanted. He got a better contract by holding out. He's going to get up to $12 million this year, no hard feelings. That's the way you get rid of the hard feelings for the Colts and Jonathan Taylor. You just give Chris Ballard permission to sign Jonathan Taylor to a long-term contract, and you work out a fair contract. But I feel like, Chris, it's too late for that. And I think Chris Ballard knows it's too late for that.
I would think so. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, if I was him, I'd have a hard time feeling good about the Colts. That's for sure. Yeah. In my heart of hearts, do I think if Ballard had just a free blank slate to do whatever he wants, he would give a sweetener or something to try to make ends meet here for Jonathan Taylor? And honestly, obviously Irsay, has an issue with this and this subject altogether. But where I think they dropped the ball, right? And by all due accounts, it seems like it's Irsay, is here's where, one, hey, he's one of your best players. We know that. But more importantly, if you're thinking really big business, big picture, like state of the organization, Jonathan Taylor's value is more about he protects the most valuable asset in your football team right now. That, to me, is where I would have thought about, let's make sure we get him in here. The most valuable asset for the Indianapolis Colts right now is the 4th pick of the draft, Anthony Richardson, right? Now, without him, yeah, it changes the dynamic. It puts more pressure on him. They might have a harder time making plays now. What are they going to do? They're not going to go, oh, let's just keep running it up the middle and doing nothing here after we're 0-3. They're going to go, let's maybe add a little more to Anthony Richardson here because we're struggling. We can't find ways to get big plays and get offensive mojo going. So that to me is where it hurts not only the team in the right now moment, but also it's a little dangerous and risky for Anthony Richardson's long-term development, I think.
And see, this is one of the reasons why the NFL is such an intriguing sport to follow. And this is true of all American professional sports. You have these finely tuned, multi-billion-dollar business operations, sports operations, but they're ultimately run like a mom-and-pop shop where the team gets handed from generation to generation. And as I've said before, and I mean no disrespect to Jim Irsay, but if you had to take some test to be able to own and operate an NFL team, he would fail it. And this is the prime example of it. This is a failure on him. You laid it out perfectly. They need Jonathan Taylor to be there to allow Anthony Richardson to properly develop. They need him to be there. They need him to be motivated, and they need him to be effective because he takes heat off of Richardson, lets Richardson have the game slow down for him. So the money you don't have to pay Richardson in the early years of his contract relative to what it used to be, all the more reason to give that money to Jonathan Taylor. And they thought they were going to pull it off 1 year at a time. That's where it went sideways. They thought this grift, Irsay, not Ballard, Irsay thought this grift was going to work. 4 years of his rookie contract, tag him once, maybe tag him twice, and then we go out and draft somebody to come in once we've got our franchise quarterback established. And now, because the guy's pushing back, Irsay pushes back, and it turns into a big, ugly mess that Chris Ballard wishes would just calm down and they could find a solution. But there is no solution. And, Chris, we've mentioned in the past that Ballard was on PFTPM right after the 2022 draft.
Yeah.
And he invoked the Mike Tomlin line, you want volunteers, not hostages. And it was in the aftermath of Devontae Adams trade, Tyreek Hill trade, A.J. Brown trade. It wasn't anything specific to the Colts. But he said something else there, too. I'm looking at the quote right now. And I think this is very telling, and it speaks to the frustration that you could feel coming from him as he chose his words very carefully. It's hard to win one game. Sometimes I think people forget that. Just like winning one game on Sunday is hard. And then to win enough games to get into the playoffs and make a real push is very difficult. So everybody has got to be paddling in the same direction and working together to get that done. And it doesn't take much to get the boat off course if you don't have that happening in your building. That's why he's so dismayed. The boat is off course because this Jonathan Taylor thing has taken over the team. This is what he wanted to avoid. And the problem is the ultimate captain of the boat doesn't get it. The ultimate captain of the boat, frankly, shouldn't be an owner of an NFL team, in my opinion. But there isn't a damn thing anybody can do about that. Even Chris Ballard. He can't get Jim Irsay to listen, and this is where we are.
No, you're right, and I think Ballard's right in a lot of what he said, and I think that's why you're seeing them, hey, whatever, you don't want to be here, go ahead, IR, whatever. They're doing that because of the things you talked about. Plus, what they don't want their franchise young quarterback hearing Jonathan Taylor say all these negative things in the locker room like we talked about. Again, he's one of the most physically gifted people on the team. And as we've always talked about, players follow that. So when that guy starts to go, hey, the owner sucks or this organization doesn't know how to treat players, right? It just creeps into guys' brains there. And if things go bad and all of a sudden you're sitting there in 0-8, now you got 12 people in the locker room going, this place sucks, they don't know how to treat people. And then it's 1-13, and the whole locker room all of a sudden is going, this place sucks, they don't know how to treat people. And that's when you get fired and and all bad things happen. So I think Ballard's doing the best he can. It's unfortunate, and it's unfortunate for everybody because I don't know where this is going to go. I think ultimately, like you said, it's trade one of those two ways, deadline or after the season.
And we're going to play a little more Ballard sound coming up, but this just underscores the reality that there are some owners in the league who are not good, and the problems from the team flow from them. And the owners who get it love having owners like that around. It makes it easier to compete when a third of the league is run by dysfunctional ownership that doesn't know basic things like you pay your great players. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.